until we're halfway through the meeting. Okay.
Recording in
So
progress.
we will have a recording available so people who couldn't see it or who weren't on the call and want to look at it later can follow up and check it out. And with that, I am going to let Brenna run this webinar, and I'll be talking over it and explaining as we go what this program is all about.
Okay, let me share my screen here.
And if you've got questions while we're going through, just ask. Just pipe in and ask. Don't have to wait till the end. Just go ahead and ask because it will help us. So Arts Across the Prairie, the full name is Placemaking in Rural North Dakota, and it's a statewide program that's part of North Dakota Council on the Arts. And we're doing this in partnership with North Dakota Department of Transportation, North Dakota Tourism and Commerce, and the state legislature. The 7-year program has an approximate budget of about $5 million. I suspect by the time we're through, it might go up to $6 million. We shall see. Next. You got it, Brenna?
Yeah, it's, oh, I suppose, give me 2 seconds.
What you got going on? Should I
It's-
open? Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we are. There we are.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay. So this program is the first of a kind statewide in the entire country for public art. And there will be 8 large-scale installations. So one for each geographic region in the state. And each of the pieces is going to reflect the unique history, landscape, and cultural heritage. So we're going to want to talk about what makes Region 6 different than the others. And there will be probably some things that make it this, that there are some similar themes. So all of the 8 installations will be placed in rural locations. And when I say rural, I am not kidding. No buildings, no people. Not in a town, not in a city. And that is kind of a unifier across the map in the state, because what we noticed is that when we started the project and we started to talk about the regions, the cities said, oh, we want it in Fargo or we want it in Bismarck. And it was like, no, you can't have it. It's going to be rural, 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 no buildings, no people. Next. I'll explain why. So I know many of you know what public art is, but usually it's when it's made for a specific place or a community, and it's about being broadly accessible. So it can be large, small, it can be in it. We see a lot of them in city plazas. There's fountains, there's monuments, there's murals. So it can be a wide variety of things. And with public art, it can be permanent or temporary. Next. So it, like I said, murals, memorials, sculptures.
Mary Dennison.
And next. And here is where we are at in terms of Arts Across the Prairie in North Dakota. So we started in Region 1. I chose Region 1, silly me, because I said, oh, only 3 counties. That's great. But they are so far apart, and it took us forever to kind of bring everyone together. And part of that is because we went through COVID. So this group, though, has been meeting since March of 2019. And they meet every month. They are extremely dedicated, and there are 12 stakeholders in this group. They secured a site, which is at the State Historical Society's site called Writing Rock. We received a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts from the Our Town program, also from North Dakota Commerce and the Andrus Charitable Foundation. And since we made this video, I think there's actually only $10,000 left to raise. We issued a request for proposal, and an artist and a project were selected. Next. So Region 1, the artist selected was Thane Lund. Thane actually is from Crosby, which is the closest city to Writing Rock. But he lives in New York City now and has been there for a number of years. So because though of his knowledge of Writing Rock and the site, he designed something which will look like the center bottom image. If you look at it from above, it would be the upper right image, which kind of looks like an ear in some aspects. But it's a land work, and it's very respectful. It's very he wanted to capture at Writing Rock the feeling of the past Native culture and the symbolism and the quietude and the beauty. Next. In Region 4, on the opposite side of the state, why did I go there? I said, sure, only 4 counties. Well, it's also highly populated, so it was pretty interesting. It's been interesting every time I make this choice. But there is a stakeholder group that is very active. And what's interesting is that they met and made a decision within 7 months about the location that they wanted to put the artwork. It's called the Dallin Esker, and you can see it in the top right photo where those green trees are at the top. It's about a 4-mile stretch of the top of a glacial formation. We put in a grant to our town, and we're in the process of getting ready to send out the request for proposal to artists. Next. In Region 2, 7 counties, but the stakeholder group is developed and active. They have toured potential sites, and we're in the process of the thing that was most evident about Region 2 was the Prairie potholes, which developed over time. And then there are usually roads that run through the middle of 2 sides of a lake. The land that we'll be securing here will be private property, and they most likely will send out their request for artist proposal in the spring. Next. Now we're talking to you all in Region 6, and you have a lot of counties. So it's Wells, Foster, Griggs, Stutzman, Barnes, Logan, Lamour, McIntosh. Is it McIntosh or McIntosh? McIntosh and Dickey. Okay. So next, one of the things that's really important is that we have a stakeholder group that represents all the counties. So with 7 counties, the minimum on your stakeholder group you would want to have might be, my guess is you'll probably start with about 20 members, and there will be a drop off. It's kind of a natural thing, but some people go and some people join. But we're looking for a group to commit to the project. They can be from arts, education, businesses, tribal members, government, communities, partners in all walks of life. We have found that historians and librarians are very welcome members of the stakeholder group because of the information that they have access to and can gain for us. And again, when we start to look for sites, the only rule that North Dakota Council on the Arts has made is no buildings, no people, rural. It's got to be in a natural landscape, and it needs to be based on your cultural heritage. If it's located off a state highway, that is much better, because then we have a partnership with North Dakota DOT that helps to put in 100% funding toward a pull-off, a parking area, byway signage. So clearly, Writing Rock is not on a state road, but DOT is trying to help us funnel a little bit of money to the county because it's on a county road. So in some way, they're going to be involved in all 8 sites. Next. What are we trying to do? So we want to build strong arts communities across the state. We want to invest in North Dakota artists. So one of the things we'll do in every region is that as we select an artist, we will offer a training for 10 to 12 North Dakota artists in the style that that artist is going to practice. So by the time the program comes to completion in all 8 regions, we should have about 50 to 80 North Dakota artists who will be more able to do large scale outdoor work, which is great because we want our artists to be out there and available. We want to stimulate economic activity and development in the rural areas, which I'll talk about in a minute. We definitely want to work across cross counties and in regional collaborations. It was interesting, but probably not in the Northwest with those 3 counties, they hardly ever spoke to each other. Why would you? You're not working on a project together. You know, there are definitely tri-county tourisms and groups that work across, but most of the counties don't. We're a little bit myopic, we're a little bit in our little silos, and our goal is to really help people in different counties work more together and partner beyond what this project will do. This will definitely promote tourism for in and out of state visitors. We'll leverage assets by bringing in creative expression, and will heighten the visibility of North Dakota as a creative state. Next one. So what does a stakeholder do? Again, diverse individuals from across all counties. You have to commit to an ongoing monthly meeting, and we do those over Zoom. Eventually, if the weather ever breaks, I'll come out and visit, and then we'll do some site touring about places that we've been discussing and look at them and talk about the pros and cons. But you all as stakeholders make the decision on the location, and you all as stakeholders make the decision in the artist selection. It really helps when we engage community members and leadership. We are having the 3 county tourism directors speak to the Region 1 group at their next meeting in mid-February. We have had Native elders, we have had educators, we have had historians, but we really want to listen and be open to what is it about our region that makes us different. So we want to really celebrate that cultural heritage. Next. So creative placemaking, which is a little bit different than just putting up public art. It instills a meaning and a greater sense of identity and understanding about where we live, where we visit, where we work, and it creates a memorable experience for everybody involved. Let's go to the next one. These are examples of placemaking projects. One of the reasons it's called placemaking is that the community is involved, and it's very representative of the communities where they're placed. So these are some really, really diverse works that are up on the screen here. And in the bottom middle, is there anyone on this call who hasn't been to the Enchanted Highway? Right, it's well known. So what we're talking about doing is similar to that, but thematically, that's going to come from each of you, the groups, as opposed to one artist. God bless Gary Greff, that's what I say. Mm-hmm. Okay, next. So it really provides an intersection between the past, the present, and the future, and kind of gives the environment the effect of humanizing it, and really can help a community thrive. Next. So we really want to look at the cultural heritage of rural areas and foster those relationships. We're interested at NDCA in being much more of a rural and economic development partner as opposed to just a funder for small projects. And we want to work through tourism to bring people to across the state and to build economy. And I think we're really looking at the uniqueness of place and cultural identity and a lot of public-private partnerships. Most importantly, I think that North Dakota is going to go on the map as a model for this type of creative placemaking, which would be wonderful. Next. So Brenna's email is there at the bottom, and I'm also going to have her put it in the chat. And we're going to stop the video and we're going to all come back and talk to each other. And you feel free to unmute yourselves. I'm going to talk a little bit more because one of the first questions is always how much money is going to go into Region 6 or any region. So we're anticipating that each of the regions will be about $150,000. So that would include the fees to the artists and their travel to and from the area. That would include the workshop for North Dakota artists so that the artists who participate can get paid a stipend. It will include the fabrication of whatever it may be. And if we are in the request for proposal process, when we tell the artists what the fee is, it doesn't mean we can't go higher, but that's kind of the number that I feel comfortable with raising funds for, in terms of being able to say match federal money with state money or local money. How we work this is that, you know, we kind of are the architect of the big program, but within each region, the stakeholders are running that region's program. So we come to you and ask you for input every step of the way, keep you informed every step of the way, hope that you'll participate in decision making. If there is local fundraising that has to be done, we'll talk about it. As I said earlier, by the time we finished with national fundraising and North Dakota fundraising in Region 1, they only had to raise $15,000 and now it's down to 10. But everybody
No.
and not exciting. So at this point, I would love it up for, I should say one other thing. We will have an administrator, so it will be Brenna, and eventually we will have a different administrator who will only be working on this project. And we will have one person who will be the site manager, and they'll be under our payroll, and they would be responsible for going to all 8 sites, for checking in on permits, for working with contractors, and also then working with the artists to get the piece built. But they'll be able to work around all 8 sites in the state. And then we did get an appropriation from the legislature for $1 million. That money went into our endowment account, and the interest that's being raised on that $1 million, which we anticipate to be about $50,000 a year, is specifically for maintenance. So that as these pieces age, as time goes on, if things need to be replaced, we actually have the money to do that. Okay, I'm going to be very quiet for a few minutes, so I would love to hear from all of you. I cannot imagine you don't have questions. You can unmute. I figure if you unmute, then maybe you'll talk. Are you excited by this project?
So I've got a question. These are supposed to be away from buildings, not near a town, etc. But what if they're close to some place that's already somewhat of a destination, maybe a historical destination already for people? Is that would that be something that would be a plus for this?
Yeah, so that actually happened up in Region 4. Because we had 3 historians on the stakeholder list, we ended up looking at 3 sites where there were historic markers, and 1 plot of land that was used to be a town but was not there no longer. So they ended up deciding on a spot that no one had been to. And the reason for that was, if the historic marker already was recognized and could be located, then they wanted to find 1 more. So what we're doing is we're going to connect both through QR code online and plaques at the site, possibly rack cards as well, where we will talk about all of the historical markers, all of the towns, all of the parks, within all of the special events that happen, and arts organizations, and in particular direct people to towns. Like, we're not going to talk about restaurants, but we are going to say, if you go to Granora, you will find this you will find a coffee shop. There are restrooms located here. So we're going to do that through online, web, and QR codes. We also want to connect with geocaching, which, like in the Northeast in particular, is extremely popular. So it's not that we won't look at the sites, Ken, but we'll consider them and then look at what else we found that might fit the bill. What else? What doesn't make sense?
So I have a question.
Yes.
So this is sort of the first organizational meeting for the project in this region. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
So we were invited because somehow we have a stake in arts. And so now it's up to us to find more people. Is that what the idea is?
Very good. Yes. So you don't have to do it. Although if you came to this meeting, I'm assuming that there is some interest there. You also can say, my schedule is so full, I can't take on another thing. And I will say that everyone who's on the stakeholder list in all the other regions said that at the beginning, but then they joined.
Well, I had no idea what this was about, but I'm very excited about it. And I want to ask our librarian, one of our librarians to come on board, and maybe, Wes Anderson from our museum. But, we're Barnes County, so I have no idea.
Well, I mean,
some of the places, I mean, there's so many cool places just in Barnes County and Fort Ransom in that area, but that would take out all the interesting parts of Dickey and down south. So I think that's going to be not an easy task, period.
It's never an easy task. And I've decided that I've become an expert cat herder. But honestly, the first few calls are, well, you have to look at this place here, and you have to look at this place here. So we will consider everything that you're going to bring to the table. And then what's really going to happen is that over meetings and listening to historians and looking at the geography and looking at the history and talking about the native contributions and talking about the immigrant contributions, it becomes kind of crystal clear that they're speaking about the larger themes that affect your region. So here's the example. Up in Divide, Williams, and Mackenzie Region 1, okay? if you had ever said to me that it was going to end up in the furthest northwest corner of this state, I wouldn't have believed you. Like when I go up there, my cell phone says, "Welcome to Canada." Well, thank you. Okay, I'm not in Canada. I'm just outside Crosby. But we started to look at places, and there were a lot of places near Watford City. There were a lot of places near I just blanked on the name of the city. Williston, right. And then there were a few historical places. And then someone mentioned Writing Rock. And when we got up to Writing Rock, when we did the tour and looked at all, we narrowed it down, I want to say, from 11 sites to 7 sites to 4 sites. And when the group got to the top of Writing Rock, everybody's head started to go up and down. And everybody said, this is the place we should do it. This is the place that really signifies the wind, the winter, the farmland, which spreads out like a quilt below Writing Rock, the native influences, the spirituality of the place. It's different every time. Up in region 4, other side, we had, let me just tell you one other place that was under high consideration in region 1 was the abandoned Fortuna radar base. Have any of you ever been there? I mean, it's like this communist block building that is now a cell tower, but it used to be the Air Force base up there. So it would have been very interesting to see how an artist interpreted that history. So a lot of different places will come up, but it'll be through unanimous decision. I won't step in, North Dakota Council on the Arts won't step in unless I think you're going way down the wrong path, just trying to keep us focused.
And I have another question. I'm very excited about the idea that you, through QRA codes and displays and stuff, will connect the town
Everything.
to the site.
Mhm.
One of the things that I would urge we do, at least in Valley City, we've made a very concerted effort in the last couple of years to create more murals. And, so we have actually quite a lot of art and technology with the bridges and stuff on display. So that would be really, part of the tourist attraction and stuff.
Those
would be
will
our
be
connect-
on. Those will be on. We I mean, we're just figuring it out up in the Northwest, but the point is that we want people to tour all 8 sites, but we don't want them to just stop and go. We want them to go to town. We want them to eat. We want them to look at the murals. We want them to shop in your town. We want them to camp or book a hotel. So it's really kind of a self-inclusive region by region, but for people coming from out of state, they can do the whole thing. They could spend 2 weeks doing this, running around.
Yeah. Okay.
Pam,
Okay,
can you speak a little bit to, so what's the incentive for someone that's in Wells County taking part in this process if, the end result is that the actual art piece is located in the opposite end of Region 6, because we're covering a lot of territory here. I know you talked about kind of that regional marketing approach. If you want to hit on that.
Absolutely. This definitely happened in Region 1 and it happened in Region 4, and they're having that discussion now in Region 2. But what has happened because of the relationships that got built through the stakeholder committee, those 3 counties are now partnering on other projects. Like they're so excited that this is going in at Writing Rock that they're thinking, well, now could we have one in each of our counties? Could we put up one in each of our counties? What would that be like? They're working together on fundraising. They're working together on marketing. They're deciding how they're going to connect all of the counties and the people in them. And sometimes that gets a little bit lost in the process when we choose the site, but I think the groups have really worked hard to keep everyone from all counties involved. we definitely would like to have either some immigrant communities on the stakeholder, an individual from an immigrant community, and from the Native community, so that we're really trying hard to get a diversity of people.
I know, and one of the, I think it's Region 4, they have a youth member as well.
Yeah, they do.
A high school student.
A
I
high
think.
school student, which has been she was actually the one who stood on top of the Dalanesker in the middle of this like green, and she just said, this is where it has to be. This is the most stunning place, and it makes me feel like I came home. We all just kind of looked at her like, where'd you come from? But yes, a high school student would be wonderful. And age range differences too. Is it Gracia? Did
Yeah,
I say it right?
yeah,
Okay.
totally. I wasn't sure if when there was a lull in the conversation, I was wondering if you could speak more to how artists are selected and like what connection you're looking for between artists and North Dakota.
So the request for proposal, I created it based on other public artworks.
Mhm.
So there is a timeline in there, there's a description of the budget, there's a description of the region that they're going to be putting the piece in. There's links to history, there's maps, there's images. We talk about what themes did the stakeholder group come up with during their conversations? And as an artist, how would you interpret that? We expect them to do a little bit of research on the region and connect to the links that we give them. They submit to start a very, very brief proposal, not even a proposal. They tell us who they are, why they're applying, and a little bit about the work they do by showing us some samples. Then the stakeholders look at that and decide which 3 finalists they will invite to submit a full proposal. And at that point, they're given a better timeline, a better budget, more detail, and then they come back and before the stakeholder present their proposal and allow the stakeholders to ask questions. I'm going to make a very broad statement. In North Dakota, we have a lot of artists. We don't have a lot of artists that can do large scale installation work. So that's one of the reasons why we want to do the training with each of the regions so that more North Dakota artists can do this kind of work. But it's not often that you find an artist that understands, well, I'm going on top of a hill, so I have to actually think about how I'm going into the hill with the engineering so that it will remain stable in the North Dakota wind. Right? I mean, that was one of our biggest concerns at Standing Rock. We had several proposals that were just like, hello, we're way up here in the sky. And I thought, and you're going to fall down.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I think we will see more applications from North Dakota artists as we continue the process.
Yeah.
that's a very good question because, we know what happens with the peace towers at the peace gardens.
Mhm.
That was, that was the weather, just the winter
Yeah.
weather that eventually took them down.
Yeah. And I think, can artists serve on the stakeholder committee? Yes, absolutely. At the moment that we send out the request for proposal, they're not on the committee. If they're not selected, they can come back in and be part of the decision-making process. Hope, was that a question? Maybe not. Hope and Jody, don't just let us know if you have something you want to ask. You guys are both on the phone.
Sorry, no, I got my vehicle and my speaker went crazy, so I lost you for a minute.
Okay,
My apologies.
no worries, no worries.
As long as I'm speaking, I will say that all I have to offer right now is that this makes me very excited. And out of all the stuff you were talking about, you wondered what doesn't make sense. And this is the stuff that makes more sense than anything I've ever been involved in right now. So I think that what you're proposing makes complete sense, and I get it.
Yay. I am so glad to hear that. We're trying, and I think, you know, this is one of those, this was a middle of the night thinking, like, I don't even know what I was thinking about that I came up with this, but it seems like my experience in North Dakota is that it's a big damn state, and we're so spread out, and we're at this point in the world where we need connection. And if we can start in this smaller way, I think it'll just be amazing for North Dakota. Hildy.
I fully agree. I think that this is really, really exciting. I think it's really, really scary too. I have no idea where to start, right? So that leads me to my question. Do we have a timeline? You know, any kind of endpoint, any kind of, okay, we're going to start this now and we're hoping to have this done by 2025 or next year? Or...
Yeah, I mean, you know, as I said earlier, we started with it being a 5-year project. It's now a 7-year project, but that's also because COVID got in the way. What did happen though, last spring in particular, is that because COVID had kind of lifted in terms of people getting together and gathering, that so we were doing region 1 for the longest time, and then all of a sudden 4 kicked in, 2 kicked in, 6 is meeting, region 3 up at the Turtle Mountain area, and region 8 are all forming stakeholder groups right now. So in a vague timeline, I guess I would say that it's probably about a 2 to 2.5 year kind of turnaround. A lot depends on where you are. It's going to be easier for you guys than it is going to be for the northern regions, simply because of worse weather or more wind, one of the two. When you said, is it scary? It's unbelievably scary, but we love it. And it seems to be, people are excited by it. And so region 4, like I said, came up with their site in 7 months. Now, can they build anything yet? There's this little period of time now where we have to figure out what property we're on. There's some legal stuff we have to do. There's some fundraising stuff we have to do, but the stakeholder group keeps meeting. They're now working on selecting the artist. And then it depending on how that goes, I'm going to imagine that they'll be done in 1.5 years. Region 2, I think, is going to be 2.5. Region 6 will be at the speed with which this group kind of gels and comes up with ideas, and we move forward. And can I get there this summer, and can we take a tour, you know, and drive around and come back on a call and go, this is it. Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it doesn't. Nick, you had your hand up.
Yep. Okay, so I have 2 kind of, but they're kind of the same question almost. Do we have someone from every county in the region on this call?
No.
Okay. Well, then
I'm saying that because Deborah shook her head no, because I don't know.
Okay.
There were people from every county invited, and there's quite a few missing that said they would be here. I'm assuming it's maybe weather related, but yeah, we could definitely have a bigger pool.
Okay.
But a lot more people have been invited and are aware of it than are on this call.
So then the second part of the question is, how is there equity ensured between the very, very rural counties and areas that probably don't have maybe as much stakeholders as a larger county might be able to bring to the table? in the
Um,
kind of decision-making things?
Well, I think by the very nature of it being in a location that has no buildings and no people, there's an immediate equity that's going to happen with that. The other equity is that if you participate in the stakeholder group, you will have a say, period, because we will make sure that that happens, that you all will participate and that you will all have a say. And we're going to be very honest with each other and very fair with each other in terms of making sure that everyone is represented. Now, we can't represent every town. We can't represent some of the tiny little places, but can we go talk to them and tell them about the project and get their input? Yes. Can we do that either in person, maybe with your help, or on a Zoom call? Yes, we can. Can we make sure it gets printed in the paper so that people can actually respond and say, oh, I think this is a terrible location. Why not think about this? And they may come to the table with something we haven't thought about. Only, I guess, to say, Nick, that we're going to work as hard as we can to be as equitable as possible.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Jody has her hand up.
Yeah, hello, thank you.
Hello.
So I participate in the North Dakota Department of Commerce Main Street Initiative calls once a month. And placemaking comes up often, and I know that there are placemaking grants right now. Can your dollars, can we match those dollars with a placemaking grant if a community is chosen?
Well, okay, so Commerce is going to be working in communities, and we're not. We're working with communities for a rural locale. So that's the one difference. Everything that Commerce does, we're somewhat involved with from behind the scenes. And so I help them look at the placemaking grants. My own opinion, I think they're not aptly named because I don't necessarily think that's placemaking, but that's okay. We do have some funds from Commerce. And so when we're raising money, the first goal is most likely going to be large national foundations or federal government. The reason for that is that because we're on a biennial statewide budget, and they would never give me $7 million ever until hell was frozen over. It wouldn't happen. So we have to go outside the state. But in addition to going outside the state, we're also talking to the regional economic development offices and the regional arts councils, and a lot of the Association of Regions, which is here in the state representing all the regions, so that they all can continue to bring money to the table. We're also going to be talking to the North Dakota Community Foundation. And so it's not clear how much Region 6 would have to raise, if you would have to raise, until we kind of get a little better handle on where some of our national money is coming from. As far as, so I guess that kind of answers the question about the match, I think. Did I do it, Jody, or?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Hildy,
Okay.
I can't believe you have another question.
Actually, I would like to move us in a more practical direction. And that is, how do we move on from here? So in other words, we need to form a stakeholder group.
Yes.
Are we going to have a person that is going to, because I think it would be good to have one person sort of take the lead so that we don't have, cross emails and stuff like that. Is that something that we decide here? Is that something that comes out of the office? So more, more the practical, how do we move from here? Because I think it would be good to have larger stakeholder meeting where we really target and invite people specifically and say, you need to be here because so, and you know, somebody needs to organize that. And how is that going to be organized? That's sort of my question.
So related to Nick's question on equity, it won't be one of you. It'll be us. And I
Okay.
think that really makes the most sense. So I'm kind of like up here being an octopus, right? And then Brenna is going to be the person who is going to help organize and do some outreach. Now, Amy, because she is our board member from Region 6, will also be someone who is going to try to keep connecting. What we've done in the past is we've had an initial meeting like this.
Mhm.
And then we've had a second meeting for people who may not have been able to make the first meeting and who can watch the video. So we will connect with them and say, hey, the video is available. You can check in on the conversation. We'd really like you to come to the next meeting. And then I'm going to say to all of you, please come to the next meeting and bring someone.
So,
Identify someone who you send us the email and the name and what they do, and then we'll make sure that they get information about the next meeting. Amy will do a general letter, we'll prepare the Zoom, and we'll meet again. And then at that point, then we say to you all, would you like to commit? Would you like to remain a stakeholder? And then we start to plan a monthly meeting.
so can we nominate, give you names of people we think should be stakeholders so that they have an opportunity to watch the movie
Yeah.
beforehand?
Yeah,
So that we
absolutely.
speed up that process a little bit. 'Cause I
Absolutely.
could come up with a
I-
couple of names out of our town that I say, you know what, you should think about this.
I totally, anyone who you think should come to the next meeting, and I'm going to poll you all on when we're going to have it. But anyone who you could suggest, we will get in touch with beforehand and give them some background and make sure that they get invited to the meeting. And then we may come back to you as a group and say, hey, we invited this person, can you bug them?
So, and we're talking seriously about librarians, historians, people connected to tourism. If I can get somebody from our economic development, they would be welcome. It is literally anybody.
It is anybody, and what we'll have to do, it doesn't mean that they want to join the stakeholder group. I think the first step is, can you come and learn about this project?
Yeah.
Then we'll ask the question about if you want to join the stakeholder group. And then we, probably Amy and I, will look at this list and say, what are we missing? What's missing? What area of one county is just not represented at all? Do we have a Native representative? Do we have a diversity of ages and people? Is there a student who we should be talking to who might be interested in this history piece?
Because we have an economic development group here in town that is really connected with arts and is interested in doing art stuff. So that is one of those places where I want to go and say, you need to hear about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And honestly, Amy knows a lot of you. I don't know a lot of you. And we need your help. We want to make the stakeholder group diverse. We want a committed group of people. But I mean, I'm a little biased, but I think this program is better than sliced bread. I am so excited by not only what can come of it, but what we've seen come of it already in Region 1 and Region 4, in terms of how those counties are cross-pollinating and communicating and already thinking ahead to what's next. It's just very, very exciting. This isn't a typical role for a state arts council to be in. Normally, we give out little grants. Okay.
And they're very helpful.
I know they're helpful, but most importantly, we want to see arts across our state, and we want to see people working to bring arts into every aspect of their communities and their lives. So this seemed like the right path. So I would love to hear a little, maybe something from Deborah or Anna or Marvell, just because I haven't heard your voices, and just any questions or thoughts, or excited, or you think we're crazy? We're crazy. Yeah, go ahead, Marvell.
I was at the first probably thoughts of this at the Main Street Summit in 2019, and we kind of, as a region, gathered then, and it was exciting then. And it still is exciting to pursue this type of thing. It sounds like a really outreach, but I think we can do it because I'm also involved with our German-Russian Tri-County Alliance through Emmons, Logan, and Magnesh County, and we have done tremendous things with what we're doing just in putting together the culture of food and the arts
My
that we,
favorite.
and so that's been exciting. And now to carry it out in different ways throughout the state, I think it's just exciting. And at that time we talked about, just as our region, what do we have in common? I'm going to say German Russians because we are way down at the bottom of South Central, and then it extends, north to Harvey and out east and a little west to the river. So
yeah, there's no question that I'm so glad you're still excited, because Marvell, that meeting was in September of 19.
yeah.
And that was there, it was part of the Main Street Summit, and there were over 220 people in our breakout session.
Yes.
Which we've never seen. So it was great because we broke people out into regional tables so people could start to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you. Yay.
Great.
Okay, Anna and Deborah. Deborah's saying nothing. Anna.
I think it's an interesting project, and I'm very curious about it, just in the sense that I'm not originally from this region of North Dakota. So it's very interesting to see the span of how far north and south and what will come of that. Just because like I said, I'm from northeastern North Dakota originally. So this area down here is very different than up there. And it's exciting to me to think about the possibilities of rural and what that looks like, because I don't know it. And so I'm excited to learn about it. And also something that from the Arts Center in Jamestown standpoint of reaching out to more arts organizations that are rural and in this area of, as the bigger organization, what can we do for you, or what can we collaborate on?
Yeah.
I'm really very interested in that, so I'm excited about that.
You guys have been very good collaborators, and I know Mindy's eye is always about what else, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yay. Deborah, you want to say anything? You have to hit that.
The thing that I see is that because we have so many counties, we may learn a lot about our area that we didn't know. Like you talked about being from Northeast, North Dakota, Anna, but even within the county, I mean, those northern counties that are involved in this are quite a ways away, and I know little to nothing about them. So,
one of the things that we started to think about is that maybe in the probably in, I'm going to say 24, we were thinking, because at that point we will have all of the stakeholder groups formed. I'm going to say that with a little asterisk next to it. But for those regions that we do, we thought about having like a one-day convening where we could get it funded, but that everybody who was involved could come together, which would start to really cross that regional line and really help us work together as a state. I will tell you that I'm avoiding regions 5 and 7 where Fargo and Bismarck are because of the enormity of the population. But we'll see. We'll see what we can do. And Ken said, good point. It sounds like the process will be educational regardless of what decisions are finally made. Yes, that's absolutely true. I think that the most important thing that comes out of this is the education and the relationships that get built. So I want to be very respectful of your time. We said we were going to finish at 6. This has been a really exciting first stakeholder meeting. We don't usually get so much positivity right off the bat. So we're going to put a poll out to you about the next meeting, which I would like to try to hold in February. Probably a little later in the month. We'll send you a poll. We'll ask for you to respond to it. In between now and then, if you have ideas for people, you can send them to Amy or you can send them to Brenna, either one. And we'll make sure that they have, and we'll let you know when the videotape is done and you can go back and listen to it. But we hope that you'll be able to come to the next meeting, bring someone with you, suggest some more people to us, really looking at each other, what's missing, who do we have to connect with? And I so appreciate your taking the time to listen, and I'm excited and I hope that you are too. And Amy, thank you for getting us started in Region 6. And I just really appreciate all of you being here and participating in this. That's it, folks.
Thank you for your excitement.
Yeah, I get a little excited. I think I get a little crazy about it, but I love it.
No, thank you so much. This is just sounds like such an amazing project, and like thank you for your energy. Like really,
You're welcome. I have a lot of it. I've been told I have a lot of it. So thanks, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. We are signing off. Go eat your supper and stay warm and safe.
Yes.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks for coming.
Bye. Okay.
Mm.
So you guys all take off, and Brenna, Amy, and I are going to hang on for a quick second.